to Kitchen Barista TV, bringing great coffee home to you. I am the Kitchen Barista. Today's an exciting day here in the kitchen. It is our first ever episode of Kitchen Barista. I want to take a few moments to talk to you about the show and really what we have in mind for it. We didn't want to do just a website. We didn't want to do just the writing. We wanted to actually do some visuals and demonstrations, and that's where Kitchen Barista TV comes in. What you're going to see here is you're going to see demonstrations of what you read about on the web, and you're also going to see us go out on location, actually get out of the kitchen and go on the location, maybe talk to some coffee shop owners, maybe some just average people about their coffee taste, and some roasters. So we got a whole bunch of different things in mind, and I am so excited about this. I couldn't even sleep last night knowing that I was going to do the first episode, and we're going to get it out to you on here. So we start with the beginning of where all great coffee starts, with the bean. Now, it's actually, we call it a coffee bean, but it's really a coffee berry, but we just call it a bean. What happens after a bean is harvested, it's green, so if you hear the term green coffee bean, somebody's talking about a harvested bean that hasn't been roasted yet. They may have hints of blue and gray, but for the most part they're green, and that's what they're referred to. As those beans are roasted, they crack and they expand, and as they expand, so it'll excrete fats and proteins and some of those oils, and how far it gets in the roasting process, determines how much of the stuff is excreted. If you see a light colored coffee bean, that means it's a light roast. And a light roast coffee bean did not get that far along in the roasting process. Then it goes up the scale from a light color, almost milk chocolate, then you go into like a brown, then you go into a dark roast. That's the three basics. It's light, medium, dark. In between, you'll have light, medium, and then you'll have a medium, dark, and then a dark. But for simplicity's sake, just think light, medium, dark. So why should you even, what does that matter? Why should you care about that? Well, because just by looking at the coffee bean, that is a good indication that you could tell about what kind of coffee you're going to get and if it fits your coffee palate. If you like a strong, bold taste, take the sip and like, wow, that's great coffee. Chances are that bold and it's a dark roast. If you like, and I hate to use the term weaker because it doesn't really indicate, it's not weaker per se, it's just not as bold, but it's actually more flavorful. If you're of the view coffee is coffee, I just want a cup of coffee, chances are you're liking a lighter roast coffee because that has none of the boldness of a bold. It's got more fullness and flavors. It's actually lighter, so it's more pleasing to a lot of palates. A great example of that is a breakfast blend. If you go into Starbucks or Pete's, or if you're lucky enough to have a Caribou coffee around you, different parts of the country that you're in. Here where I live, Caribou coffee has not come up here yet, but we're hopeful it's someday. If you go into any of those places and you get a breakfast blend or a morning blend, I think is what Caribou refers to it as, then that is a light roast blend. They actually are perfect for breakfast because the lighter the roast of the coffee, the more of the inherent flavors are still in there that make that bean unique depending on where it was grown and how it was grown. So if it's got some hints of berries or citrus or nuts in there, you're more likely to actually taste those to their fullness in a light roast because they keep them intact. As you go farther down the roasting process and the scale, those flavors start to disappear, and what you're actually tasting is more of the roasting and not the actual inherent flavors of the bean. So back to the breakfast blend, what a breakfast blend can do or will do is it's the best type of coffee you can drink to complement your morning breakfast. If you have fruits and berries in your breakfast that you're eating, a morning blend or breakfast blend coffee will complement that because it also will have maybe a nutty or fruity taste, and it'll bring them out and it'll complement each other. You go to a medium roast coffee, which will start to take on a distinct brown look. So if you look at your bean and it is distinct, it's starting to look very dark brown, that means it's gone further down the scale and it's actually become a medium roast. Some great examples of that are, again, the Starbucks example, house blend, Pete's coffee, that's a house blend, would be medium. Or if you go into Caribou, a Caribou blend. Those are medium blend coffees. And that's typically where they'll start because a medium blend coffee is, some say it's a perfect roast coffee, the medium, because it has some of the inherent flavors of the bean still intact, and it's also started to take on some of that bold taste of a darker roast coffee. And you can sometimes, depending on how far that medium roast has actually gone, you'll get some of that smoky flavor of a bold taste out. And then if you go to your bean is dark brown, a little oily, or even looks black, that is a dark roast coffee, obviously. And that actually is going to have really smoky flavors to it. It's going to be bold. This here happens to be Pete's French roast. Even just by opening up the bag in here, now you're not going to get the full flavor, obviously, until you grind it and brew it. But just by opening up the bag and sniffing, just there I can get it's a powerful scent, a distinct scent, and I can pick up little smoky overtures in here too. So, why should you care? Well, if you're of the type you like bold, rich tasting coffees, you want to make sure the beans that you get are dark. If you want a lighter tasting coffee, one that's just going to go down and you're not going to get any sort of a bitter taste to it, then your lighter roast and lighter colored beans are what you want. If you don't know, if you're one of those people who just really don't know, you're like, I just want a cup of coffee, and I go into these coffee shops and it's too confusing, so I just go to the supermarket and I buy whatever coffee is on sale, and it's usually going to be one that's in a can. Won't name any names here, but the big red tins, or the blue, or the black and the yellow. Please do me a favor, don't buy those. If you're not sure, most supermarkets have Starbucks or Pete's or New England coffee, other types of coffee in there that they sell whole bean. Do me a favor and do yourself a favor. Go to that part of the coffee aisle. Pick a medium roast coffee. If you can't find one that specifically says medium, most supermarkets have Starbucks now. Get a Starbucks house blend. I've also seen in different parts of the country, you can get Pete's coffee in it. Get a Pete's house blend. That is a medium roast coffee, and that is your starting point. You take that home, you grind it, and you brew it. You taste it. Little too strong for you, then chances are you want to go down towards the light roast and towards a breakfast blend type thing. If you taste that house blend and it's really good and you're like, this is great coffee, then I urge you to start to go up the scale towards a darker roast and maybe even try a French roast or an Italian roast, because you'll really taste the difference between the medium roast and that dark roast when you do that. So if you do that, send me an email or respond on the website, because I want to hear how successful you are in that, and if it did work for you, if it made any difference. If it didn't, you're still confused and say it's just easier for me to just go somewhere and order a cup of coffee, I want to hear that too. So now we move into the segment of our show called Coffee Facts, or useless information you want to try to impress your friends with. Today's coffee fact is go back to the Old West, those days, and we may have all heard the term cowboy coffee. Interesting fact about that is it said that cowboys made their coffee by taking the coffee grounds, putting them in a clean sock, dunking them in cold water, probably a stream of some sort, cold water, and then heating that over the fire, and when it got warm enough, they would then pour that out of their sock and into their cups. My question is, what do they do if they didn't have a clean sock? Anyway, that's not for me to answer. So, we wrap up our first episode of Kitchen Barista TV. As with anything, I encourage you to give me some feedback. I want to hear it. Email me, send me something on Twitter. You can follow me, twitter.com/kitchenbarista. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you in further episodes.